Good evening and welcome everyone to Got Writer's Block Live. Today we have an amazing guest, Christine Liu of CL Designs, and she is going to be teaching us all about design and how to increase your conversions with some very specific email design tips. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you so much for
Yay!
having me, Jessica. Mila, thank you.
So happy to have you.
Amazing. And Mila is here, of course, helping us moderate. Thank you so much, Mila.
Yes. Any questions, insights, put them in the chat and I'll get to you as soon
Absolutely.
as possible.
Absolutely. Neil will be responding to you in the chat. Okay, Christine. So I know that we brought you on here today to talk about specifically about design for emails because we both hear from clients that they think they have really good emails, but no one is clicking on them or opening them, but they have like good ideas. So what do you think really gets in the way of people not clicking or not like properly engaging with the emails the way they want?
Yeah, I think the thing that you and I have come across and identified a lot too is that yes, people are coming to you for your own expertise and your own brand, but also making sure that it really resonates with the actual people that you want to be attracting, i.e., like paying clients at the end of the day. So keeping that in mind, there are definitely a number of techniques that we'll talk about today as well and through the replay for people watching. But yeah, we can dive into it whenever you're ready. And there's a few key areas that often get overlooked also.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good point about talking about what your customers want to hear versus what you want to hear. And it really takes a second person that's like not you in the company to sometimes ask and get those questions out. So yeah, Christine, take it away. I know you brought some slides to help everyone and show some visuals.
Yeah. And so before I dive into it as well, for those who might be new here and don't know who I am, I'll give a quick intro as well. So my name is Christine Liu. I am the expert behind CL Designs and the Brand Party podcast. And with CL Designs, really helping purpose-driven businesses and nonprofits with your cohesive branding, website design, email marketing, and collateral to really help you increase your impact and your sales. And with Brand Party, it's another great resource for you. If you're looking to learn more, then definitely access some free, fun, honest advice that you can implement right away wherever podcasts can be found. But let's dive in here and I'll share my screen so that you can have access to a few hot tips together.
Perfect. We love hot tips. We're ready.
Alrighty. Let me know if you can see everything okay. Okay,
Okay.
amazing. So
Perfect.
for the yeah, okay, amazing. So the top 5 email design techniques that I've narrowed down for you, we'll dive into each of these a little bit more, but the first one here you'll see is around creating brand cohesion with voice, messaging, and overall your look. So again, making sure that it's reflective of you and your values, but also what are those personality traits that you really want to bring to surface so that your overall voice and messaging is cohesive that way as well. And I'm sure Jessica will have some good tips around that too, as a copywriter, but definitely making sure that it complements one another with design and your copy, because that's really where the
Mhm.
magic happens. And then as well, I'll show you a few different examples that we can dive into for each of these. But the second piece, just going overarching for the top 5 here, is to save time and build awareness with your own branded template. So really looking at making sure that you have tools and resources that you can come back to so that you can actually come out with things on a more regular basis. And then the third one being around using visual hierarchy to storytell. So making sure there's something to emphasize and keep your focus throughout, especially when people are passively scrolling. And then
Mm.
the fourth piece here, consider user experience. So really looking at your date and time scheduling, those can make a really big difference in terms of how people are opening it, as well as really engaging and consuming with it too. And then the last one, really personalizing and optimizing those call to actions, and then being conscious of the devices that people are going to be looking at this on as well. So let's dive into the first one here a bit more. Feel free to dive into, Jessica, about your tips around copy. But
Mhm.
with creating brand cohesion, it really does start off with, does it feel like you ultimately, especially if you
Mhm.
are a solopreneur or working directly with your clients and customers, then you want to make sure that that voice is really consistent overall, and like that unique value proposition is really coming to surface in terms of your messaging to make sure that you're standing out as that big differentiator in the market. And then, of course, to making sure that the look is also cohesive with those
Mhm.
characteristic traits, right? Because if your voice is very witty and bold, then it is going to likely look a lot more like what you see in this graphic here even also. And so you might have like really bold color choices with that to complement that overall voice. But then if you're actually much more like calm and friendly and you want something a bit more stoic or sophisticated, that's definitely going to have a much different look and feel to it design wise. So you want to make sure that it's reflective of those intentional choices too.
And I think, with it all being, like, cohesive, you want your emails to also match your social media and your website, right? So you
Yeah.
don't right? You want it to all be connected. It's something that is often overlooked, that different things look different. But, like, if you think about, like, huge brands, McDonald's looks the same everywhere. Like, their
Mhm.
menu looks the same, their stores look the same, so then when you're thinking about your brand, you want everything to kind of all be in one, so you're memorable, right?
And
Yeah,
make
that's
sure
a
you're
really great
recognizable
point.
for anybody,
Sorry, go ahead,
right?
Mila. Go
I was
ahead,
just
it cut
saying,
out.
oh, no problem. To add on to just what you were saying too about memorability, you also want to make sure that you're also recognizable so that, you don't get lost in like the many emails that you get from like different, like, right,
Mhm.
newsletters that we're
Mhm.
subscribed to.
Yeah, like, you wanna be an authority, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's nothing worse than when you've tried to establish yourself online, especially if you are translating something that's so experiential in person, typically or traditionally, and then trying to mimic that online. And then, if somebody happens to find you on LinkedIn, for example, first of all, and then they have a completely different experience that feels very unaligned or unrelated when they do land on your website, or they do end up opting into your email newsletter and it feels completely different, then there's that lack of alignment, a lack of trust that develops from there. And it can be really
Confusion.
like quite a impactful moment, yeah, for people to
Mhm.
either bounce right away too.
Perfect. Okay, so number 2, save time and
Yeah.
build awareness with a branded template.
So I'll go through a few different examples here as well. So of course,
Mhm.
Jessica and I worked on her template together, which you may have seen if you're part of her newsletter community or even on LinkedIn. You may have recognized something like this in a few of her posts. But I think really coming back to having these tools and resources are really helpful, and establishing that color palette especially will help with that
Mhm.
first tip, especially too. This way it becomes recognizable. Like your primary brand color is that teal color, and then having that
Mhm.
accent for the yellow, right? So making
Mhm.
sure that it's contrasting enough that people can still read things and it's accessible for folks, but also, being able to personalize it with photos and stuff like that really help bring it to life a little bit further. And then making conscious decisions of like, where do you want to put your copy and how do you want to style things so that they do stand out equally as much too. Um, but yeah, is there anything that you want to add to your specific template? I'll show a few different other examples too.
I think one of the benefits of having the template is that you have a cohesive look, because if
Mm.
you have to keep going in and making these, like, each month, you may not, have the same, like, style each time, and you may confuse people, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like, even if you don't have a typical schedule in terms of like having a LinkedIn Live every single month
Yeah.
or week, for example, if you do add in something different, like for example, I have another client named Sonia from Happy Heart Love and Life, and she's a coach as well. And so sometimes her workshops change out on a regular basis where she comes out with a different meditation, for example. But something that you can still bring in, her brand colors as really bright and actionable orange color. You can still keep the styling the same throughout the call to action buttons too, right? So it still feels cohesive
Mm.
by having this template in place.
So then basically she can just switch out the text, but keep the images similar.
Yeah, exactly. Or if they feel like a little bit off in a sense, like in terms of coloring for photos, if it's more like lifestyle oriented, this theme for the month, then at least you can still bring cohesion through. You know, the headline copy is in her branded colors, ties it in with the call to action buttons too.
Mhm. And she probably always has, like, the banner at the top that's memorable.
Yeah, exactly. Because even from your example, as well as hers, I think especially if you are building that thought leadership as a personal brand, it's going to be really powerful for people to see your face every once in a while on a regular basis, just to build that connection and emotional connection a lot further too.
Mhm. Any thoughts, Mila?
I like the idea of having like, because Christine, you were mentioning themes, right? Having like
Mhm.
variations depending on what your target is for that particular piece of content. Like for example, with Jessica's newsletters, like we recently updated our banner to sort
Mhm.
of align, because before it was like this, but now we actually have more like visuals to align with like mental wellness and finance and all these different things that we usually like to in terms like that those audiences, we like to try and like target them with
Mhm.
like our email marketing tips and things like that.
Mhm.
And so it's
Yeah,
nice to
that's
have
a
that
good
to like
point.
show. Yeah.
That's a good point about the themes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there are definitely different ways that you can incorporate that so people feel really seen and heard ultimately. And coming back to the third one about visual hierarchy to story tell too, I think like this way, you know, by having those key
Mm.
like headline stylings to your subheads that are maybe like a bit smaller in size to your body copy, they also create that hierarchy from a font perspective so that you know where to look and read each section. It's much more clearer and like easier to digest. Sometimes I also recommend, depending if you have a lot of copy in the body as well, that people bold certain things so that especially if they're
Mm.
passively skimming through, it's just really easy to get the main idea or concept across of what you're looking for. And so for the American Society of Acupuncturists, they have like as you see on the right side, a lot of different sections and committees that they need to go through and like educate a lot of their community around because there are a lot of updates on a regular basis. So just making that conscious that, you know, making it really easy for people to digest and then also having these images throughout just to add some visual interest in terms of that overall storytelling too. Because if people are hit with a big block of text, more than likely they're just going to feel a bit overwhelmed again and exit from that newsletter too.
Absolutely. Big blocks of text are out. People wanna skim, right, and scan? So
Yeah.
having, like, the little
Hmm.
paragraphs and then the images is really good to break it up.
Yeah, breaking
Hmm.
up with like subheadings as well, different fonts, italicize if some things if you have to, bolding, different colors. It really helps to like even label things in a way and make it all very
Hmm.
navigable.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then the fourth piece around considering user experience for dates and time scheduling. So I will say, even from my own personal experience, I've noticed like even a 10 to 15% increase in experimenting with this. And so it's been really
Mm.
interesting to see that by experimenting with date and times of when you actually send things out, they make such a big difference because, first of all, you want to be conscious of different analytics and KPIs of what people are going to be basing your like informed decisions on when you are creating your newsletter and making these choices, but ultimately too that, you know, if I had sent it out on a different date during the day, for example, it was much different than selecting a Monday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time
Mm.
to send things out. So it was really interesting to see by like I polled people and had this market research
Mhm.
from my audience also, and just being able to directly ask people how do they want to experience things ultimately, because design is also not necessarily only the visual elements that you're incorporating, but rather like holistically what do they want to experience to really support them throughout their whole customer journey too.
Mm. So what time did you end up going with? What time did you start with, and then what did you change to?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it was previously, but it was like something random, I think in the middle of the week, and then was during, I want to say like 12 p.m. roughly, like midday sort of thing. And then
Mhm,
I had changed it to become the after party, which is what it's called now.
mhm,
So very much getting to your frontline experience of design and marketing tips, as well to help you cross that that red tape line and really you, me, design and dancing. And so keeping that theme in mind, I wanted something more evening oriented and it happened to work out that way
mhm,
because I polled people and they had mentioned like Mondays were really great times. And then I experimented with the 5:30, so just after people's workday, but not too deep into the evening where they weren't in their inbox any further. So I would say like really tap into who is it that's going to be reading this ultimately and what's best for their capacity and schedule on a regular basis.
mhm. And then through that research, you also kind of figured out that the later timing works, so then you changed the name too,
Yeah, so
right?
holistically actually worked really well. Like I changed my banner also just like you did to be reflective of that overall
Mhm,
feeling of it and what I wanted to encompass for that theme, but also, yeah, with the timing, the date scheduling and everything, it really helped make a bigger impact on that overall experience.
and that just goes to show that your branding is gonna evolve and change as you grow and you
Mhm.
learn new things about your audience. One of the best things you can do, like Christine was saying, is actually talk to your audience, because once you figure out what they want and you give them what they want, they'll usually come back to you and engage or wanna buy from you,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, and I think it's starting to build the habit with people is that, like, into kind of the last, tip too around, like, being able to personalize it and have more of those direct call to actions, that's gonna speak volumes because you actually show that you understand their needs and challenges ultimately and be able to help them in their customer journey a lot further because you understand where they're coming from, like, what stage they're at, um, making it digestible for people because oftentimes like they might not quite be ready yet, which is why they're part of the newsletter, but they are also consenting that they want to be part of this. They want to get those educational resources that you're offering and being very giving in that sense so that when you are helping support them on this free or accessible basis, imagine what they can do with you when they do actually hire and invest with you.
Mhm. And for anyone that doesn't know, CTA is a call to action. So it's like the buttons of like learn more, click here. Christine, do you have any tips for good CTAs? Like what do you find works well?
I think like copy wise for call to actions, making it really short ultimately would be great. Like no more than 5 words, ideally.
Okay.
If you do have more of a like 5+ word verbiage that you want to use, I would put that like above the button perhaps, and then use like, read now, buy now, learn more type language. So that's just really punchy. And then add in if you do have something in your color palette that is a little bit punchier. Studies have shown like red and green are typically very proactive for people to
Mm,
want to click buttons as well. So if that is something a part of your palette, then definitely maybe aim to incorporate one of those would be interesting to test out. But being conscious also of like the devices that people are operating on for like mobile, for example. If you do add
mhm,
call to actions, like making it really, there's like enough white space in between, but also looking at, yeah, if it's too many words on a mobile device, especially because over half of people are using mobile devices when they're checking their
mhm,
emails, etc. from now on, that you need to build it for these applications, moving forward.
mhm. That's a really good point because if you see the screen there, it it can only go so big, right? It's the cell phone. So really
Mhm.
be careful about what you say on your call to actions, and sometimes you just need to bring in a designer like Christine to help you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Think we tend to
Yeah.
fall into this trap of like having our purpose, like our why in the CTA when really that should be, as Christine was saying, like above that, like in the body of the text. And
Mm,
then, once the receiver knows like what you're talking about, what they have to do, they just go to that button. You just say do this thing, engage,
Yeah.
help us adapt.
Exactly as Mila said too, right? It's like making it really clear for people to identify that, because oftentimes if we don't ask or don't put it out there for
Mhm.
people of what that call to action is, they just don't take action or they don't engage, as you're saying, right? So if you're
Mhm.
experiencing those things and
Yeah.
you do want to improve it and increase it, then make it really clear for people to identify with it. So I would say, if possible, per section, like have one main call to action button, because those stand out a lot more. But if there is a secondary, or if you need to have a like tertiary call to action in there, you can always hyperlink it in the text so that it's still available for people to learn more, but it isn't necessarily being spotlighted or heroed as much as that clear main objective that you might be having.
And you can always utilize the PS. I think it's very
Yep.
underutilized, and you could put extra tidbits that don't fit into your call to actions, right?
Exactly. It's like a nice last call sort of vibes,
Mhm.
like so this way, if people actually make it to the end, and similarly, if people, it's the same idea that people who go to your website and they scroll all the way to the bottom to the footer, for example, and they happen to make it all the way through, and they don't happen to scroll all the way back up to the contact form, for example, make sure that you have that last little bit to just make it really easy for people to take that next step.
Beautiful. That's it. You just wanna make it really easy. So Christine, those are some awesome 5 email design tips. Thank you so much for coming on today. Now, I'm
So
sure
much.
there are some marketing managers, nonprofits, purpose-driven businesses on LinkedIn here that need design help and need conversion help. How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would love to help support you in your own journey as well. So if you are interested in chatting a little bit more together, then definitely reach out at christineldesigns.com/contact and let's chat.
Perfect. And what is your main offer right now?
Yeah, so I have a VIP design day that would be a really great fit for folks, especially as we wrap up the end of this year. And so, if you are a bit stretched at capacity, the link is here, as Jessica put. So, thank you so much. But you can get everything checked off your design wish list in just one day together. I do have a few limited spots available. So, if you are interested to lock in 2022 pricing, especially, and get everything done, then definitely check out the link.
Okay, amazing. So Christine is ready to help you really convert your audience, get to know them, and she's an amazing, lovely designer to work with. So everyone contact her below. Thank you so much for coming on, Christine.
Thank you so
Yay!
much.
No problem. And we hope everyone learned a lot about design and that hopefully your email conversions can go up from these tips. Or if you need to book a call, the link is below. Thank you again, Christine, and thank you, Mila.
Of course.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.